5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, that music.
Hey,
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, that
start
music
the day
just
with
starts
rhythm.
me. Yes. Oh, it just gets to me. I'm ready to just move, shake my shoulders, shimmy, shimmy,
Ooh,
shimmy.
I could use that too. The shimmy feels
Uh,
good.
yes. Oh, you want to start with a nice deep breath in and out. In, breathe in that light.
Mm.
Out. Oh, yes. Wow. Just that little moment for self and self-care. Oh, I am so excited, Megan. You know,
I
I'm
am
always excited.
too. We had a good conversation this week.
We did, didn't we? Oh, some really vital information to help us as educators. Um, I mean, not only in the classroom, but how do we balance our personal life as well there? And Kelli Chapman was just so awesome with and forthcoming with her discussion with us. And I'm just excited for our members to hear what she had to say.
Me too. Should I go ahead and share our conversation?
Oh, yeah, let's
All
share that
right.
conversation. I am so excited today that we have the opportunity to meet with Kelli Chapman, and she is going to tell you a little bit about who she is and what it is she do that is absolutely amazing. I'm just absolutely excited to hear all about you being here. So first of all, welcome. Welcome to our True Dear Stories.
Hi, so happy to be here today.
It's great having you, Kelly. Thanks for
Okay.
coming on for us.
Um, so
Go ahead.
Tell
um,
us a little bit about you, who you are.
yeah, so obviously I'm Kelly Chapman, a dance educator. I teach at P231K in Brooklyn, and it is a District 75 school, elementary school, K to 5. We serve students with autism, students with intellectual disabilities, and students with emotional behavioral disabilities. Um, we are a fifth floor walk up, so not ADA accessible. So our ratios are limited to a 6 to 1 to 1, 8 to 1 to 1, and 12 to 1 to 1. And the Ames class is the 6 to 1 to 2, where there is a full-time speech teacher in the room with the children. Um, and
I'm sorry, could I just say, so for some of our members who might be new, they may not know those ratios and be familiar with them. Could you break them down a little bit for us so
so yes, yeah.
we have
Sometimes
access to that?
I get stuck in this jargon.
No, it's what
You've
we
been in it
often
for
do
like
because
11
we're so
years,
good at
right?
it.
11
Yes.
years in the jargon.
Yeah, 11 years. This is I'm in starting year 12. We started year 12.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Excellent.
Same school. So it's 6 students to 1 teacher to 1 paraprofessional generally. But if a student needs additional supports in the form of another paraprofessional for health reasons, behavioral reasons, or for language reasons, there may be additional paraprofessionals placed in the students called 1 to 1 paraprofessionals. And so the 6 students, 1 teacher, 1 paraprofessional, that paraprofessional serves the classroom as a support. And then any additional paraprofessionals serve 1 student specifically for their paperwork on the IEP, but also they're very kind, wonderful people and help out with everyone. And everyone's a great team. And then
Can you share some of the lessons that you've done? I know you've done some really creative things with your students who are identified by the city as having special needs. You still find an excellent way to bring dance into your school building.
so we have done a ton of things. I try and make it as concrete as possible for the learners that need concrete dance making, because dance can be very abstract. And I also am fortunate enough to work with students who, they don't need it as concrete. They can, it almost looks more like a typical dance class with them because of their learning needs. It's more behavioral. So what we do is we have done obstacle course dances, which I have a photo we'll share.
We'd
I
love to see it.
see it now. Yay.
Yeah. Let's see your obstacle course. And
So
maybe just for people who are listening in instead of watching, you can describe some of what we're seeing in the photo.
excellent. I can do that. So this, excuse me, because I not great with Zoom. We use Google Meet at my school, so I'm learning still. But this obstacle course is was designed by the student on the stepping stones. There's a blue tunnel at the back of part of the photo, I guess I would call it the back. And then there are these round, multicolored, different sized raised discs that look like stepping stones. And they are orange, yellow, green, blue, and red. And one student is standing on them. And then there are hoops and cones, and the hoops are connected into the cones so that they can step through them, sort of like if you're going through a part of the tunnel. So the student in particular, he found great enjoyment in building these obstacle courses, and that inspired me actually to create a lesson around this. And you could actually create a whole unit around it with further development, but an initial lesson was to teach my students, because of their gross motor learning needs, how to use and interact each of the obstacles, stepping on the stones, crawling through the tunnels, going through, stepping through the hoops, or they can be reconfigured to jumping in and out of the hoops. And you can even add a trampoline for jumping.
And
A
where do you get
full
all
ramp.
of these? Because this is a lot of supplies. Where did you find these supplies for your classroom?
I did a donors choose, and what's wonderful about that is there are certain programs you can do to get kind of like a gift card. And I
Okay.
did that, got a gift card for like from Amazon or through an Amazon learning experience that I did with my students. And then on the double match day, I applied it to the project. So that gift was then doubled. And
Oh,
then, of course,
excellent.
through generous support, friends and family, and anonymous donors out there.
I always feel like with Donors Choose, it's hard to reach out and ask people for money. So
Yeah.
I will only post it if it's on one of those match days, which
Mhm.
they seem to have quite a few where their anonymous donors come through. A lot of them are corporate donors and they come through and match your donations, which is nice.
They also, I have found, will match your donations toward the end of a project,
Ah, nice.
or not match them, I should say, but kind of complete them, which is nice.
That's nice to know. That's great.
And also, I think that some of the supplies I was able to get through the Arnold funding that we,
Oh, the Arnhold New Teacher Support.
I don't,
That's a great support. I know that this year they've changed it to a 3-year program. So now the Arnhold program will support teachers for 3 years, which I think is awesome.
that's great. Or whatever the funding for arts teachers is.
Okay, nice.
And I take very good care of my supplies. I don't let the phys ed teacher take them. Um, so I was thinking the
You
scaffolding.
can probably stop sharing now. Thanks for showing us that picture.
Thank you.
It's nice to see your space. After all, it is called Studio Stories.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's nice to see the inside of your studio.
the space
Very
is
much so.
gym.
I am just curious, Kelly. You mentioned about developing a lesson in a unit. So how did you go about based on the inspiration from one of your students who was constantly building this stuff? How did you then take that vision of that student's work and implement it in a way that it became instructional for students to help develop their gross motor skills? And also, did you include music? What were some of the other things that you incorporated to really just make this?
So, as you can see, my students are very concrete learners, and the language skills, because with autism, they have limited verbal skills or varying verbal skills, use devices, sign language, picture symbols. So I actually made a creative process where we not only learned how to interact with the obstacles, but then I had pictures of everything and they were able to sequence it like you would sequence movements in a dance. And we did that on the smart board where they dragged it into a movement sentence with by picture after having learned how to use and interact with them. And then going forward from that, you can take away the physical object. So it's sort of like the Doug Verone choreographic process with the objects where you interact with them with the movement. And then once you take the object away, you keep your movement and then you have your movement sentence. And it just
And
came
you
to
have a dance then.
Yes, I
yeah.
remember that amazing process we did. Yes.
We
I
did that
remember
Doug
some
Verone
of the-
workshop,
Yes,
remember?
even some of the things I want, I want
Yes,
to, and that was also amazing. So it's
that
good
was
to
a
see
great
you've
PD.
implemented some of the practices here in based on the inspiration from the student and also what you had participated in previous works.
And suddenly what we have is something that's very concrete and looks like an obstacle course, but you take everything that away, you have a dance and it's so simple. And for my students, they don't even realize that what they're creating is a dance. So it's also that guided discovery practice of teaching dance instead of being very top down. It's student centered. And before they know it, they have this beautiful thing that they created.
Wow. I'm, clearly, I mean, I'm stuck with the sign language, the different things that you are using, manipulatives that you're using to support your students, and all this amazing work you're doing with them. In that sometimes, how do you, as an educator and just as a regular person, maintain a sense of care for yourself in all of this, doing all of this? Because it's important that you yourself give a sense of care. So doing all this work where you're caring for your students and you're going through the lessons and all this, the work that you're doing with them, how do you preserve a sense of who you are? And also, how do you care for yourself? Because that's important because
That's a
a
great question,
lot
Edwin.
of our colleagues, we get so caught up in the work itself that we forget to take that breath. So I'm just curious as to how do you do that?
So I make sure that I take a lot of time for myself, for my interests. So I am very active with my training, running. When the day is hard, I try to remember to take those deep breaths. It's especially because I deal with some very intense behaviors and
Right.
and sometimes, and it's helpful for myself when I need it and for my students when I sense that their energy is very out of control for themselves and they need to kind of bring it in. We have a set of yoga mats. We get our yoga mats out and we do a short yoga sequence. Either
Adapting in that moment, right?
yeah, some of my older students do that. There's several resources out there on YouTube, Cosmic Kids, that they'll do it, Yoga Monkey or something like that, with breathing exercises, and even for anyone who subscribes to Peloton or something like that, for some of my students, will, take some of those practices and try it out for ourselves and just get
That's
whole.
Self-care is so important, and I love that you thought of a way to give that to students too.
as well, yes. And that was one of
Right?
the things that I really grappled with that. So you were saying about your running, doing that for yourself, taking time for yourself and breathing through some of the difficult moments. That is something that we often sometimes forget to do. But what I like about what you said also was the fact that you also engage them in the practice as you're doing it. And that is sometimes when oftentimes as educators, we forget that sometimes when we're dancing with the students, that we are doing those things, that we are actually taking care of ourselves in that moment because we ourselves are artists and we find different ways of outlet. So you really gave us some really interesting nuggets that we can use. And for me, brought out some really important ideas and things that I sometimes forget about in reference to the work. How do I incorporate the students in my own personal care factor so they also have a sense of care for themselves?
And sometimes we just put on the music and have a sort of dance party. And for my students that are young, I dance with them. We just have like a good time, and everyone's happy and smiling. And sometimes you need
And
that.
then you have, we're almost out of time, Kelly, but you have a great unit that I was hoping you would talk about around games. Can you
So
describe a little bit about games?
definitely. So to help bring in student interest, I use this unit of games to actually create the end of year performance where we generated a list of all the games, movement games, board games, video games that students are interested in. And then we played the games, and that was our choreographic process to play the games. And one of the games that was my favorite was Don't Break the Ice. So we played this game of Don't Break the Ice, which is almost like a board game, not without the board. But then we talked about how your movement quality has to be to not break the ice. So if you're ice skating, how do you move on ice? Is it stomping on the ice, or is it soft and gentle and gliding? And then we got to have fun with it. And it's like, well, what story do you want to tell? Do you want to keep the ice intact, or do you want to break the ice? So then they have fun going from like the gliding movements of ice skating and balancing and being soft to stomping around. And it was all student led and student centered. And it's the simplest thing where it's just like, for my students, you just string along this movement sentences. And if they can't use their words to describe what they want to do, they show me, and I help them with coming up with the words. And then for other students, we'll use the pictures of what they're doing, pictures of them doing the movements, and we just put that in the sequence so everyone knows what the beginning is, what the middle is, and what the end is. And before we know it, we have a dance. And it was all inspired by playing the games that they love.
And fun fact, Kelly, you were in a performance with me of Monopoly. So we use games on a proscenium stage also.
I think that may be what inspired it that year.
That's great.
Wow, that is lovely. That is really great. Wow. I mean, I'm thinking about Twisters. I'm thinking about all these other games that you can really use to just engage movement ideas. And this is what is so wonderful about the work that you're doing, Kelly, with your students, and that you're able to share with your colleagues, because we often think of things so big and remember that sometimes the simplest things can be so rewarding and bring out such creativity in our students.
Yeah. And
All right, so that's our interview with Kelly. Oh, Edwin, you're on mute. But I loved your example of Twister. I think that'd be so fun to play in the dance studio and then take the board away.
Very much so. Really, yeah. That was absolutely amazing. I love the interview with Kelly. And just so many nuggets in reference to just self-care.
Yes.
How to get resources in your classroom, donor tools and using the Amazon gift card, and when to use it,
Right.
that's a skill set in itself.
It is. We're also fundraisers as dance teachers.
Yes, very much so. We do so much, and it just really brought down. As I was sitting here, I started to write down some things some games that I can have my students do that just start to ignite and inspire choreography building and just the work that we do. So
That's
this is such a great session. I'm so excited because election day is on Tuesday.
Yes,
And we
PD
have that
day.
all-day PD for dance.
And I've heard it's going to be amazing.
Yes, very,
Yes.
very much so. Very,
And
very,
audiology.
yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your day. Have some tea and coffee.
And guess what? Before we go, guess what I had in my cup when I did the interview with Kelly?
What did you have?
Stay tuned to next week.
Oh, all right. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.